Welcome, everybody, to the Modern CFO Show, where we sit down with some of the best and brightest minds in finance from some of the largest companies in the world to share their knowledge and industry insights in 2025. And joining me today is Heena Agrawala from Whalar, the world's leading creator agency. And before we dive in, Heena, could you kindly introduce yourself and tell us about some of the amazing things you guys are doing over at Whalar today?
Sure. So thank you so much, firstly, for having me on the podcast. Really appreciate it.
No problem.
Um, I am Heena Agrawala. I am the global CFO at Whalar. Before Whalar, I have spent most of my career in advertising. I have worked for several agencies and large holding companies. I've been at Omnicom. I've been at Ogilvy, which is part of WPP. Been part of Digitas, which is part of Publicis. And now I've been here at Whalar. Whalar, as you mentioned, is the world's leading independent social and creator agency. At its core, Whalar connects influencers, creators to brands. And we've really grown the last few years. So it's a very exciting space to be in.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's quite a new and niche industry as well. I mean, even from someone who's in the currency industry, even I've heard of you guys. So you picked up a lot of traction, of course, over the past 5 years. And I did want to ask you actually. You've been with Whalar for 5 years yourself. The employee count has gone from 65 to well over 300 now. I
Yeah.
wanted to ask, what did you do as a CFO to scale the business in such a new and niche industry?
Yeah, no, that's correct. Absolutely correct. When I joined Whalar, we were about 65 employees, and now we're over 300 across across all the divisions and all the geographies of Whalar. So Whalar is now in 6 countries. We have 6 diverse business divisions. Um, so, and the way Whalar grew is basically we kept creators at the center. As the creator economy took off in a big way, we also continue to innovate. Whalar continued to innovate and grow alongside the creator economy. So we made sure we were in all the spaces and places where the creators wanted to be. So uh, at its core, Whalar was an influencer marketing agency when it first started.
Hmm.
Then we added a talent management division, and since then we've now got a physical campus for creators called the Lighthouse to come and collaborate. We have a venture studio called Mobi Ventures where creators can develop products. We have to merchandise it, bring it to market. Um, we we've got Foam, which is our tech platform, which is like an operating system for creators. So as the business kept growing in all these different areas, to your point, finance also had to kind of keep pace and grow in all these areas. Um, so with every new venture, every new division, we had to relook at our business, relook at our model, uh, relook at all the accounting complexities, and make sure we were bringing in the right talent, the right expertise within finance, building the infrastructure, the operational elements, and then from a systems perspective, we had to keep ramping up our systems, financial systems. You know, um, we had to learn. These were all such diverse businesses that even for me, there was tremendous personal growth and development as a CFO
Hmm.
to learn something about having a physical campus, and what does that, what do those financials look like? So a lot of on the job, fast learning and development. The joke at Whaler, we always have a joke that we are building the plane as we are flying it,
Hmm.
and that's completely true. So so the whole business kind of grows together and learns together, and we just, so far so good, have made it happen.
Exactly that. I'm trying to put myself into your perspective there because it's like this kind of industry and this kind of business isn't as common. So obviously, like you said, it's very difficult to sometimes predict things. Like you said, having a campus, not many companies will have their own campus with so many different influences there. It's like, how do you manage that? How do you forecast that? So I imagine, like you said, it's a lot of on the job learning, and then getting
Yes.
in the right people to kind of help with that and scale efficiently.
Yes, we've been good about getting the right experts in all the time, asking for advice when we open a new market. You know, we get like local accounting firms, local expertise. That's been critical. Or even on all these niche industries, we'll get the right people in the leadership roles. And from an accounting finance perspective, like I've brought in the right control, the controllers with experience in those divisions, for example. So that's been crucial to keeping up with the success,
Hmm.
from the back end perspective. Yeah.
Well, I can imagine so, yeah, and I can see why it works as well because like you guys didn't just turn around and say, right, here's a website, the creators can go on there and keep it simple. You've actually created a whole campus for influencers to come in. It's like you guys are really pushing boundaries, and that's why you've scaled and done so well from an outside perspective, anyway. And then getting the right people in is just a perfect combination for that. I did want to ask that, in our previous conversation, you mentioned that you've used quite a lot of automation to scale this business. Obviously, being quite a new and tech company, I imagine you've used a lot of maybe software, a lot of AI to really scale the business. What was the original model, and then what does it look like today in terms of the real company processes?
Yeah. So, I mean, the original model, like any fast growing startup, starts with the basic accounting software, right? So, of course, the business had the early softwares in the company, and then a lot of it was in Excel. A lot of the consolidations, while there was not even full accounting that was being done in all these different, you know what I mean? We had to build all the accounting processes and systems. Everything was done in Excel. We didn't have KPIs set up. We didn't have proper metrics or tracking. We didn't have any project management system in the early days. So, we were doing things manually initially. And then as the business got complex and we had to report so many different permutations, combinations of the business, all the different business units individually, consolidated, different geographies, different markets. So then I migrated us to NetSuite.
Mm.
After exploring a few different systems, we felt this one would work for our business, specifically where we were in the journey. I also wanted to bring in a system, knowing Whalar's ambitions and how fast we were growing. I wanted a system which would not outgrow too soon. I wanted to build for the future. So I wanted to make sure we had an ERP system which was flexible enough. So that's worked out really well for us. We moved to NetSuite about 3 years ago. And Whalar is a very complex business it's a multinational business. It's got multiple currencies. It's, yeah, we just needed a lot of flexibility. We need project accounting systems built within the ERP system.
Mm.
So this system has worked for us very well, where we can, do the consolidations on time, do the click of a button, everything rolls up. But I think it's also when you're setting up a new system, I think you really have to know your end goal and know that you're going to achieve a key 3, 4 big objectives.
Mm.
Because I don't think any system solves all the problems or will meet all the requirements. So you have to just be ready for the trade-offs, depending on your business and where you are in the journey.
Yeah, exactly that. So I imagine, like you said, when it started, it was a lot of manual processes, which is okay. Obviously, when the
Yeah.
business is in a startup position, you don't need to go and spend excess money on fancy processes. But obviously, when it gets to that turning point of really scaling, you do need to implement that. And
Yes.
was NetSuite something that you had in previous roles that you were quite familiar with, or was it a case of going out and kind of doing a bit of research to bring that in?
No, no. So I had personally never used NetSuite before. So we definitely had to research a few systems, and it was and just we kind of had to go with what was more applicable to our industry because there's so many good systems out there. So we just kind of got advice from different people and spoke to different sources, and then based on the demos, we thought this was going to be the best for us.
And I imagine, obviously, part of that is obviously, like you said, is kind of future proofing. So not having to change something every 6 months or a year is kind of setting something, allowing it to scale, and having it future proof to save the time of, retraining staff again, and vice versa. So I
Completely.
imagine that works for you in the long run, of course.
Yes, I just wanted to. Even when we bring the system in, there are definitely still features in NetSuite that we don't currently use.
Hmm.
Right? I don't need to use the whole system, and I knew that going in. But I also knew that we would, as we continue to grow, we would eventually start activating all these different parts of the ERP system. So that was very critical for me, that we just, to your point, not keep having to relook at things every 6 months or a year. So
Yeah,
that's
exactly that.
yeah,
Yeah, and I know you mentioned there, like one of the biggest challenges that you kind of had was that currency side of things. So I know in recent times, you've had to pay thousands of your creators and your
yeah,
influencers. What does the currency and payments process look like, to stay efficient and also to minimize risk as well?
yeah. So that's the largest component, the largest transactional area of our business is really paying our creators, our
Right.
influencers, and we work with thousands of influencers. So that was one of the other things which was very manual, and we needed to get out of the manual process as fast as possible and as quickly as possible. So about 4 years ago, we started that process, even pre-NetSuite, where we looked at the right payment platforms that were there, global payment platforms. And again, we did a ton of research, and we zeroed in on a system called Tipalti, which pays influencers across the globe and in multiple currencies. And I also knew that it integrates with accounting systems. So that was also key, that I wanted a system which would integrate with other systems, with our ERP system or an accounting software. So we went with NetSuite, with Tipalti. And so we connected that to NetSuite, our ERP system. But we also built API connections to our own tech platform that we have,
Mhm.
where our creators sign up and where we onboard them, and that is where all the collaborations are entered. So it was critical that we connect these three systems together. And with that connection, we've been able to, all of the information feeds directly through the systems. So we are not manually typing in a single invoice or entering in a single invoice. We're not
Right.
manually keying in any bank details. Everything is just automatically synced. The most we have to do would be a CSV upload, depending on the
Hmm.
workflow. Uh, but we just do one CSV upload for hundreds of payments, and it's just sent out. And then it's automatically recorded in the accounting system. So that's been a really big game changer for us, having just in terms of eliminating risk, and manual processes and delays and things like that.
Yeah, well, it's like we mentioned earlier. It's like that whole part of scaling the business is, if you didn't implement, say, NetSuite, and these automated processes, the manpower, the hours the accounts team would have had to put into, 100% of their day would have been typing up invoices and doing bank
Yes,
details. And now you've got a system where, I imagine, from the front end, the creators put their details in, that then syncs, so everything's just one continued automated process, which then leaves you
exactly.
to then get on with more strategic vision, of course, right?
Totally,
And the team.
totally. And just more peace of mind that there's no manual human error, like minimizing that component as much as
Hmm.
possible, is really helpful here.
Yeah, exactly that. I also wanted to ask as well, not just in Whaler, but maybe in previous roles as well. Can you share an example of maybe like a financial or an operational crisis that you may have managed, and what you've actually learned from that?
Um, I mean, when you're working with a fast growth startup, I would say it's just keeping up with a lot of things that happen on a daily basis.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of daily, fortunately, I wouldn't say crisis, but I think, as a founder likes to say, mountains look like molehills in the hindsight. But of course, at that point, you have to just get over the challenge, and you move on. But specifically within finance, I would say when we do these transformations, like the CRP implementation, or right now we've done like 3 acquisitions and we're in the process of integrating them in NetSuite. Um, I think the big learning has been, for me, has been as you're trying to automate or do a finance transformation for one process, you may not realize that another part of the system is, if you change this, that other part of the system is going to break
Right.
because
Yeah. Yeah.
they are so, interconnected. And you may not, as a CFO, sometimes you may not realize that I'm trying to fix this payment situation here. But on the other hand, somebody's depending on this report and that's not going to work because I'm changing all this thing. So I think the learning for me is as a CFO, you need to get into the weeds when you're doing any
Mm.
kind of transformation because actually you do have a 360-degree view of the business as a CFO. The AP person may not be talking to the treasury manager, but you do know the whole scene.
Right.
And I think you can control, you can prioritize like what you need to prioritize, which areas you can give up on, and which areas you need to keep, or what can and cannot be changed. So for me, the big learning really is if you're doing any kind of big transformation or acquisition or M&A integration, the CFO needs to have that 360-degree view and be in the weeds to eliminate problems downstream.
Mm. So you have to kind of think about not just what's going to happen in the next few days, but the longer term effects of that,
Com-
changing up systems, maybe how other
Completely.
employees are going to have to be
Yeah.
impacted by that for these decisions.
And not being in a silo, I think, is key.
Mm.
Like not making a decision in a silo, where you're just thinking about the finance process and not the rest of the wider business.
Yeah, I think that's it. Because sometimes, not just really in finance, but also like in most departments, like for the sales department, they may change one of their processes, which may work brilliantly for them, and that's great. But then you do have to think of, well, hold on a second, we've got this model set up in place for expenses, for example. Sales team go and change that process. It's like, how does the whole team going to be impacted by one change?
All the time. Yes, exactly. You hit the nail on the head. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and I wanted to also ask, obviously, times are changing, especially in the world that we live in right now. What advice would you give for or to other CFOs in 2025?
Um, I would say, I think we all have to do a lot of scenario planning. I think we'll have to, just have multiple situations and outcomes planned for in terms of, sales, costs, you know, um, business disruption, and really have a couple levers in your back pocket ready
Mm,
that you need to pull out as the market conditions change, so what you can quickly implement within like 30, 60, 90 days. But I would definitely keep a couple level, you know, ready that you can draw upon and maybe write out a quarter if you need to before you make bigger strategic changes, but
mhm.
have something for the short term ready, which will help you then give you some breathing room over the next 3 to 6 months. So if you need to pivot, you can, but you have some space.
Mm.
Um, at least that's what I kind of think personally. What kind of buffer do I have in the short term, which will give me some time to then make some long term changes if I need to. Um, that's what at least that's where my head is at. Uh,
Exactly, yeah. I mean, obviously, like most of us will have our like monthly and yearly plan, and we always assume that it's going to go perfectly. And then obviously, something happens in the market, something can get shut down, a process changes. I know, for like in our industry, for currency transfers, a lot of our businesses would import stock, right? And then sometimes, you can't get a delivery on time, and one of your big projects is delayed, and you need to obviously, especially from a finance perspective, be able to always prepare for maybe the worst and also
right.
have a solution for that as well, of course. I also wanted to ask, am I right in saying you've got employees that are in different countries, so all around the world
Yes.
right now? Is that in the finance function as well that you kind of manage?
So yes. So we've kind of centralized a lot of the finance function. It's a global finance function. So It is a small team which supports all the regions, all the geographical regions.
Mhm.
Uh, but we do have uh, 2 or 3 employees in the UK in finance, and then the rest are US based. Only because just with time zones and trying to keep those functions centralized, that's what the model we've opted for now.
Mhm.
It may change as the business grows. Uh, but the one thing we've done is we've definitely got local accounting, external accounting firms in every market to give
Right.
us local accounting support. So in Spain, in Estonia, we've got local accounting firms that we partner with. BDO, PwC, these accounting firms which give us support over there locally from a, just to be compliant and because to make sure the regulations and things are being uh, they are being closely managed, in terms of taxes and VAT and employees and payroll and things like that. So all those have been actually outsourced locally, which has been, I think, also very, very helpful for us
Hmm.
um, because we keep the core finance team within Whalar keeps it centralized, and then we have this localized support from the experts.
Right, I see. Oh, okay. So maybe that's obviously maybe some advice for someone or for a company thinking about expanding a bit further, is actually to have that support from local people on the ground that can, give advice on, regulatory requirements in that country. Because we obviously, as CFOs, sometimes we don't always know it all and we can't then expect to go and do research on every single country. It's best
Yeah,
to ask for help there, yeah.
no, definitely local support, but local experts, I would say,
Yeah.
also more than just to have that expertise on the ground.
Right, I see.
Yeah, because we don't, to your point, we don't know what we don't know. So that's been really, really, I think that would be one of the big advices I would give to anybody going to another market.
Just to have that. Yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense. And I always do like to ask. I know everyone's got their own take on this, but I think it's really, really important, especially in today's age, that we don't really have too many opportunities, especially overseas, to get together face to face. I'm always a big advocate to be in the office where possible, to meet people face to face. And I think when we're responsible for other people, it's very important that, that human aspects of life doesn't get too lost. So how do you tend to manage working with employees that are overseas just to make sure they're on track, they're okay, career development? Do you have set processes for, Zoom meetings or catch ups? What's your kind of process?
So, because we are a centralized finance team and we do not have too much duplication of tasks within the finance team, we are very interconnected. We are very, I mean, we are talking to each other like literally all day long on Slack, on Google, on Zoom calls, video calls, all of those. Um, we just had we have offsites within the US for the US team where we will all meet. Not as often as I would like, but a few times a year. And
Hmm.
then, we were just in the UK having, finance meeting over there. So we're planning another event in October for the whole finance team. So we try as much as possible, um, as much as calendars permit, because, so yeah, I think I mean, and then Whaler as a company, we have all hands. Um, we still have, quarterly all hands, which is on video, but then before that, just, uh, as we getting out of COVID, we had like company wide meetings in the US and the UK. And then individual departments will definitely try to meet more frequently, like the finance team itself will try to meet more frequently.
Hmm.
So, yeah, so we're trying as much as possible. But that is, I think, a different challenge now in a post COVID world. I think that all companies struggle with is how do you get the teams together? Um, and yeah, so far, though, the finance team has been, it's people have been here for a while and are very, well connected.
Yeah, I mean it's good that you've obviously got that constant contact with everyone anyway, like the touching base, whether it's Slack or jumping on video calls, which is quite handy in today's age anyway, of course.
Yes, yes,
I did want to just finish off on a bit of a quickfire round, just to
sure.
ask you a couple of questions. I wanted to ask, I know we mentioned earlier about NetSuite, but what is your favorite software that you're using at the moment?
Um, I mean, you know, I don't want to endorse any particular software because I think every software has its pros and cons, and for different businesses and for different stages of the life cycle of the business. When businesses are small, I mean, I've loved QuickBooks and Zero
Mhm.
for small businesses, for sure. Um, and then for larger companies, I've worked with many softwares. For Whalar, NetSuite has worked very well so far. Like I said, it's not. I don't think any system is going to meet all your requirements.
Hmm.
But for our key requirements, multi-currency, multi-country consolidations, um, divisional and group reporting, it's worked well. And also from a local compliance perspective, like reporting, filing VAT returns in the UK is very country specific. So some of those things are also being managed. So it's checked a lot of boxes for us. We were not able to automate 100% of the processes, uh, some of them because of operational reasons on our side.
Hmm.
Uh, but that's fine. Those are smaller lifts for us to keep them manual, which has been fine. So yeah, like I said, no system is perfect, but if it meets majority of our requirements, so for us, NetSuite is working for us.
Perfect. Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's going to vary from different size company, of course, whether you're a large entity or maybe a
Yeah.
smaller company. What's the best career advice that you've ever received?
Best career advice, which I keep very close to heart and in my mind all the time. One of my mentors had told me earlier on, he used this analogy. He said, keep adding to your toolkit. And what he meant was really keep adding, make sure you're learning and adding new things you've never done before. And for me, that's, it's been so helpful because I feel, uh, in every role that I've been in, I mean, I've learned so much, so many new things and done had so many new opportunities um, that I've, like just doing a full ERP implementation, for example, here has been really, uh, so it had me think of things in such different ways,
Hmm.
so it's been, and even now we're doing all these acquisitions with new companies, and that's been, I feel like I'm learning something so much, so many new things. And then Whaler is in so many different business areas. And that's been given me exposure, to how do you set up a business for a physical campus, or how do you set up for a SaaS product. And those have been such different experiences for me. So I just feel like as long as I'm, and then, if within the role and then attending conferences and learning from other CFOs, or attending AI events and like what's happening in that world has been like just very mentally just very keeps you very agile, you know.
Yeah, exactly that. And I think obviously when you're in kind of new industries, new niches like yourself, you have to have that personal development. You're going to automatically get pushed anyway because there is no foundation of how to do things
Right.
previously. If you're an AI company or a business like Whaler, you have to constantly develop yourself and push that. And I do think as well, you did actually mention quite, which is quite interesting, is that I think when you get to that C-suite level, I think sometimes people like to maybe switch off a little bit that they've kind of made it, so to say, and they don't have to learn anything new. But like you say, keep adding to that toolkit because who knows where,
Yes,
where that limit is.
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I did also want to ask, what is the best social media platform for business growth in 2025? Having a lot of influencers that are all around the world, some of the largest. What's your advice there for the best social media platform?
uh, so there's no one sort
One
of
size fits all.
one size fits all, I would say. just because I feel all the different social media platforms are meeting such different in such different spaces. So I think you want to look at your audience, you want to look at your content, you want to look at your goals. For example, YouTube is great for search for long form, right? But Meta and Instagram are great for community and for scale. TikTok is great for cultural relevance. Um, you could have Snap is great for Gen Z engagement because that's where they
Mm.
are. So you really want to really you don't want to be limited to one platform and one algorithm. You want to make sure you're on multiple platforms and just to meet your goals. So yeah, I think as at Whalar we see that, right? We have creators across so many platforms and we are across so many platforms.
Well,
So
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah, it's obviously having that mix of all of them. Just, I mean, like, if you're an accountancy company, you maybe want to prioritize LinkedIn and Facebook, for example. If you're selling physical products, maybe TikTok shop. So it's maybe a not one size fits all thing. You've
no,
really got to look at your target audience.
yeah, and so yeah, to point, like LinkedIn is great now for thought leadership and for B2B engagement, right?
Mm.
So you really want to think what your product is you're trying to get across and be across multiple platforms, um,
Yeah,
especially in
exactly that.
2025. Yeah.
Yeah, and also as well, just to finish off, what is if anyone's learned something from today's show, they want to find out a little bit more about what you guys do. Is there any way that the audience can reach out to you, whether it's via email or LinkedIn?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Whalar is the company is, of course, whalargroup.com. Is our core website, and I'm on LinkedIn, Heena Agrawala. Whalar has a presence on LinkedIn. So, yeah, we'll welcome any questions, any engagement, any discussion. Absolutely.
Perfect. And I'll also add as well, for the audience listening, if you are a business that wants to get in touch with, other influencers, please do check out Whalar because they've got some of the greatest influencers that you can go and engage with to help to grow your business as well. So make sure you
That would
definitely
be
check that
one.
out and do that.
Yes, please. Thank you so much. That'd be wonderful. We are one of the leading creator and social agencies, so that'll be wonderful.
Yeah, and I wanted to just lastly say thank you, Hina, so much for your time today. I really do appreciate it. Make sure you do enjoy it the rest of your week, and I'm sure we will catch up soon. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Zach. Thank you for having me on the podcast. Really appreciate it.